My name is Sal. I work at Cardinal Financial. So at 20 years old, you started tattooing, and I remember I remember looking back on like your very beginning work and me thinking like it looked sick. And I remember I said it to you one day. I'm like, dude, like you never didn't know how to tattoo, and you're like, that sucks. Like you probably
Yeah.
look back at stuff you've done last year, and you're like,
Oh
that,
my God, always.
yeah,
Always.
right.
Yeah.
I think that's part of, if you don't feel like you're a lot better now than you were 2 or 3 years ago, I think that's a sign of you.
You're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people also get caught up in what everybody else is telling them. Like, mommy's always going to tell you you're doing great. You know, my mother always told me.
She always loved your work.
Yeah. When I was 12 years old, when I was 10 years old, everybody was like, you're an amazing artist. And I look at that stuff now and I'm like, that was so horrible.
But you're also hard on yourself because you were 10.
But exactly.
When I was 10, I still don't know the difference in the colored pencils. But you're like,
I mean, at the time I thought it was good. And then every year, I stay analyzing whatever I've done in life and trying to recognize, what isn't good enough. And there's always people around you telling you what's good. And I try to look at people in my industry, what they think about my work. The people that
but
I
are they
look
even
up
honest
to.
with you?
Yeah, sometimes not.
No.
Yeah.
So you're just looking for one person to tell you that you suck.
Yeah, exactly. 20 people tell me I'm great. I'm like, one person tells me I'm suck. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Time to
What can I do better? And
Yeah.
it's the person who's not as good as you.
Yeah.
That's always who it is.
Yeah.
So I remember you worked for Bang in the city.
Yeah. I hadn't planned to work for Bang Bang. It was kind of like a random hit up. I was touring for a little bit. The main guy I was working with, he was on Ink Master. When he came off of Ink Master, he had kind of like a contract to go and do all these conventions and stuff. And I just started working with him, so I went with him. One of the guys I met while doing that, he was working for Bang Bang, and he brought my name up, and Bang Bang just ended up reaching out to me like, hey, I love your work. I'd love if you could, come by and I could talk to you and meet you and potentially have you work here. So I'm like, all right. So I'm like, I'll go talk to you maybe, because I was comfortable where I was and doing what I was doing in the conventions and all that stuff. I was happy. And he made an offer and I was like, maybe for like 3 months I'd go there and like it, boost my, following a little bit. Yeah. And initially he said, I'm only interested in you full time. So if you can't do full time, I can't hire you. And I'm like, all right, well, I can't do full time.
And that's how it ended.
And that's how it ended. I was like, I'm done. I'm like, I can't take that. He was like, all right, bye. Because I didn't want to leave all my Long Island clientele. I knew I had worked, for the past 4 years, at that point, building out that clientele base. And I'm like, if I leave them and go to the city, I might never get that momentum back.
Right.
And if I ever want to come back to the island, which is my home, I might never have that again.
And you're also in the city. You're more working under the umbrella of that business,
so
and not yourself.
Yeah, and the pricing was exponentially different.
Right.
So it was like I would destroy my Long Island clientele base. So maybe 2 months went by, and I did a post that it was a little viral, and he hit me up. He's like, "All right, I don't care. Fuck it. Like, come work for me. You can do part time. You do whatever you want."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "All right." So then I went part time, which turned into full time. My 3 months turned into a year, and I worked there for a year. It was a great experience. I learned a lot from Bang Bang.
Yeah.
Especially just marketing wise and business wise. It was really cool to work for somebody like that. Met a lot of cool people like Rihanna, Bieber, anybody who's anybody.
I remember you telling me in the same sentence when you telling me you weren't going to be able to stay out there. Like, yeah, I met Rihanna. I'm like, you're like, yeah, it's not for me. I would sit there.
I'm so not one of those people.
I know.
I didn't, half of the people I didn't even know. I remember it was like 2 weeks where I was hanging out with Odell Beckham, who you probably don't know either, but
I think he plays baseball.
He plays football.
I'm just kidding.
Right. So,
that was a joke.
So at the time, mind you, this is like 2014, right? So I am not into sports like that either. So this kid, he was young. He had been like 21 years old, and he's always in the shop hanging out. He was there like every day.
You didn't even know who he was.
I didn't know who he was, so I fuck with him. I bust his balls every day. I talk all this shit. I'd hang out with the kid like every day, like he was just some Joe Smo. I thought it was some rookie NFL player. And one day I come home to my brother, who's a huge football fan.
Get a picture.
I'm like, hey, do you know this kid, Odell Beckham Jr. is like some rookie player, NFL? He's like, he just happened to have the Madden.
She's on the cover of Madden.
He's on the cover of Madden. He picks it up, he's like, this guy? I'm like, holy shit.
He's literally on you playing as him in the video game.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
No, so I remember thinking like that's, cause I was always in the barbershop, and like I used to think like our industries were similar to an extent, but
Very, yeah.
yeah, but I remember like, first of all, I don't have to, it's not a secret what you get paid to tattoo people. I'm sure it's on your website.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more money than
You'd be
you can
amazed.
make cutting hair for the day.
True.
Right?
You'd be amazed how many, it's like everywhere that it can be seen, you'd be amazed how many people
Still
DM
ask.
me.
Right.
What is pricing? If you
Right.
can't figure it out.
No, well, I mean, I know I'll get a discount, but no, right? Everybody gets a discount, right?
Yeah,
That's what I tell when people I used to cut their hair and they'll be like, "Yo, you can cut me a break." I'm like, first of all, it's $25, so no. But second of all, like that's what do you think? What do you think's gonna happen next time you call my phone?
Yeah.
Like I don't care if you want a haircut, you got a flat tire. I'm not answering the phone. This is what we do for a living.
Yeah, and if I got 100 people that want this day, and I can only pick one of you, who do you think's gonna get it? The guy that wants a deal, or the guy that's like, I got an extra 200.
Right. When you started working at a shop, how much were you charging for tattoo?
Honestly, like I worked for free for like, I'd say like a year.
All right.
So a lot of times what I would do, my first shop is I would kind of do whatever my boss wanted me to do. So I'd just hang around, wait for walk-ins. Somebody came with a baby mama name, something like that. I did a name on it.
Tattoo on Friday the 13th, the number 13.
Yeah. Stupid stuff like that. And I would do that however long the shop was open, maybe 12 to 9. And when the shop closed, I would have my friends come in and I would tattoo them for free overnight. So I was working the day shift at whenever the shop was open. And then overnight, till 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, I was tattooing my friends for free to do the stuff that I wanted to do, the portraits, the realism stuff. Because I knew nobody's going to pay me to do a portrait of their kid. They never see me do a portrait of their kid. If I want to start branding myself as that, I got to put that out there. I got to do that.
Yeah, but do you still feel like that after you see some of the pictures online of tattoos that people have paid for? I've seen those memes and it's like, this is a tiger. I'm like, no, it's a crumpled up piece of paper. It's not a tiger.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
I think, I think you've always sold yourself short. But either way, if you've started, even if you were, when you first started, what, $200 for a tattoo for the day, $300?
Oh yeah. So my first, when I finally started to feel like I was worth anything, and I started doing the day rates, I'd say that was probably like 2.5 years in, where I was like, I'm only doing day rates. 'Cause I knew what I wanted to do. I always wanted to do one thing a day, one big thing. I wanted to be branded as that. And my first day rate was 500.
Yeah.
It's 500 for the day.
Do you remember getting your first $500 in cash?
I remember, yeah. So I remember like that first week where, when I made like $2,500
in a week.
In a week, and
you're like, I'm rich.
I was like, I'm rich. Like, this is it. And if we backtrack a little bit, when I started to come up with this plan for tattooing, and I had like a 5-year plan, that 5-year plan consisted of like the end of the 5 years being me getting into a shop and hopefully making like 60 to 80 a year.
A year.
So
when you did it your first week, you were like, wait, did I miss a zero? Yeah. I miscalculated this whole thing?
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, this is great. I'm never going to be able to spend all this money.
Yeah, but again, there was some rough years of not making anything. I'd say like the first year, 2 years, I really barely charged anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody.
Now, what were you doing for money?
I was living at home.
Okay.
And I was just, eating nothing, living on
scraping.
I've always been like a skinny kid, I could gain weight. Yeah, I promise.
I'm busy. I don't need as much as
Exactly.
It was the same thing with me. I mean, I sold bootleg DVDs, but that was bullshit.
Yeah.
But that was.
But you've been hustling and doing that for as long as I can remember. I think my first car that I ever had when I was like 16 years old, I shouldn't have had.
Is that the one you spray painted?
No. I was 14, and that we got.
That wasn't your car.
That wasn't my car. But the first car that I actually purchased, I was 16 and still I shouldn't have purchased. I remember I had a CD that I think you burned that I got from
music CD
from Chris. Yeah.
Labiento?
Yeah, from Labiento.
Oh my god, yeah. He lived on the same block as me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was forever. Like I say that now and people laugh and I'm just like, let it float. I'm not gonna sit here and explain to them that like I was making so much money.
You selling for like $3.
$3 a piece. But everybody's like, yo, you only sell CDs for $3. How much money can you really make? I'm like, they cost 8 cents. They literally cost 8 cents. So I don't know. I made
Decent
a
markup.
1,000 CDs for $80.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
was, it was crazy. And then for me, that started to disappear when the haircut started to pick up. So I got lucky because.
And then they started to be one and the same.
Oh
for a
yeah,
little
well
bit, right?
that was
Yeah.
like a solid 5 years that it overlapped,
Yeah.
where I was making just as much money, probably cutting hair as CDs. Those were golden years. And then when the CDs started disappearing, that was when I kind of shifted to hair cutting, and then I shifted towards mortgages. Like
Yeah.
it always had to be at least two things. The court stenography is a bad chapter that we don't talk about, but that was really bad. I remember like you were one of the only people that had the balls to be like, you really want to fucking do that? Like that's really you? And I'm like, yeah, bro, you got to look at what they're making. And you're like, yeah, okay, I'll go tattoo. I'll talk to you later. So I remember you telling me what you did for, what you would make for tattoos. And I just remember going home and running the math and being like, this kid should just work 7 days a week for 3 years and then retire in Cancun. That was like my thing. And then I remember you came in one day and you told me you started working paramedic.
Yeah.
I couldn't wrap my head around that.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to tell me and the rest of the world why you decided to take off of your $2,000 a day tattoos to get on an ambulance ride.
So that's multifaceted. I think first, if we backtrack a little bit to being on vacation. I was in prison for 5 years of my life, the early years too.
I always forget that it's 5 years.
Yeah, so it was a long time. And it was during my adolescence. And so I had an 8-month break in between. I did 2 years, and then I was home for 8 months, and I did another 3 years. When I was home for that 8 months, my big dream was to like enlist and serve and do something like that. That was always kind of my dream. Tattooing and art and stuff like that was kind of an afterthought. After Bang Bang, like I said, I had only expected to make maybe $80,000 a year tattooing. At 24 at Bang Bang, I probably cleared $250, take home.
And that's tough because they take a lot from you.
Yeah,
that's a big shot.
Yeah.
So you probably generated $900,000.
Yeah, I generated a lot. So I probably took home $250 that year, and I still felt kind of empty, like I was missing something, and like I wanted some kind of purpose in life. And I started to look back on like the initial things that motivated me. And as you probably know, like I'm not financially motivated. Like I never tattoo because I know it's gonna make me this. Like I like tattooing, I like doing art. I always do everything that I like. And I've never chased something specifically because it was gonna make me money. I've always tried to be true to that. Like I'd rather just be happy and do what makes me happy. I feel like I've never seen the inside of a high school. I never went to college at that point. So it's like I want to do so. I want to go back. I want to go to college. I want to be able to say that I did that. I want to be able to say that I've done something other than draw pictures, So and have some kind of purpose in life.
Really good pictures, though.
Thank you.
Like really good pictures.
Thank you.
I mean, you've just been lucky enough to where, not lucky enough, but you've set yourself up to where
I could do that, where I could take the break and say I could take this hit right now. 'Cause it was a big hit, I had at the time I had an M4, I had a Jeep, I was renting the house, I had a good
vacations.
I had a lot of bills at the time. It cost me a lot of money. I was still, I was in school full time. I was doing clinicals full time. It was a year at Stony Brook where I eat, shit, sleep, school. But I was still tattooing 2 to 3 days a week just to pay the bills, and slept maybe 8 hours a week, somewhere in there, yeah.
So now let's fast forward a little bit. You bought a shop.
Yeah. So last November, I finally pulled the plug to open my own studio, just a private studio. It's just me in there. It's real nice. I don't have to.
Which is probably how you always wanted it.
Oh, well, I always said I never wanted to open a shop, period.
I know.
Because I didn't believe in, I hate to say it, but I didn't believe in artists. Yeah. I think artists, a lot like me, they don't work for money. They don't want, it's not about the finances for them.
That comes second.
So to invest in other artists, it's kind of a shitty investment because they're like these little franchises of people that don't want to work really.
Yeah.
so
Case in point.
Yeah, like they don't really want to make money. So I wouldn't want to invest my business into other people that don't want to make money. So I figured, look for a space that was going to cost me about what I was spending to rent my chair at the other place.
And call your own shots.
And call my own place and have everything the way that I wanted. Because there was certain things about, you know, my last shop that I wasn't happy with, that I didn't think represented my brand. And I have a lot of people that come from all over. You know, people come from the city, people come from different states, even different countries. I had people fly out from England, you know, all types of crazy places. And
I had somebody drive from Queens once, so I
had
Just so you know, I know you're trying to show me up here, but that's a far ride.
It's different. It's an hour thing. Yeah. But, you know, and I wanted them to be able to come into a nice area and a nice shop, and, you know,
and
everything represents
yours.
Exactly.
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
You know? So now you're basically just branding yourself, your place, your shop, your work. It's all just you.
Yeah.
If you want to change your direction, it goes in the direction you want it to.
Exactly.
So that in and of itself is worth, even if it's a little more than what you were paying.
It is a little bit more. But for me, it's worth it.
Right.
And I think that little loss is worth, you know, giving my clients something that I think they deserve, you know, and the comfort from me, because I'm going to be happier. I'm happier. They're so much happier.
Yeah.
You know, I think I do better work when I'm in a better environment. So
that's for sure. And since you took the time to put that up, you obviously had to put your plans for buying a house on hold, because there was no way that you could have enough. Oh, see that segue?
Yeah.
So, right. So you just bought a house, what, 2 months ago?
I just bought a house 2 months ago in September. And yeah, it was also a hold and a rush, because I had to hold off at first, because obviously, you know, I gutted the shop. I built it all from scratch. So that was a huge chunk. But now on the plus side, I got to use some of that to write back on for depreciation. I got to use some of that to help me now get the house. As long as I bought the house,
it would have worked out
fast enough.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So if I waited another year, I wouldn't be able to use those benefits as much.
Yeah, no, I remember talking to you about that. We got the accountant who we should probably have on here one day, but there's definitely things that you can do as a self-employed person, or as anybody in general, like whether it's, you know, I mean, this in particular for buying a house, but you did it 100% legit. Everything is perfect. The IRS is not knocking on your door.
I only used 1 year's tax returns,
right?
Too, which was a huge help.
Which was big, right? So, you know, there's things that you can do to gear up for a home purchase. This really is not supposed to be about home purchases. It doesn't make sense. But the point was, you started your own business, you bought a house, you did something else that you were going to do, that you wanted to do for yourself. You're still involved in that.
Yeah.
You make the money you need to make, you live the life you want to live. And I think it's just because you wake up 3 hours earlier, you go to sleep 3 hours later, and you just keep your mind focused.
It's like a lot of times people be like, oh, like you're so dedicated, or oh, like you're so disciplined. Like, I'm so not disciplined. I'm so not dedicated.
Well, like, I remember like, yo, where are you? I just woke up, bro. I'm tattooing. There's no like real schedule.
Yeah, it's not that. I'm just, it's not even like a conscious effort. It's, I constantly am putting myself in these situations where I have to wake up because something is sink or swim. And I'm just obsessed with what I'm doing constantly. And
you like being under pressure.
And I like being under pressure. If I don't have a reason to wake up, I'm not going to wake up.
Yeah.
You know, but if I roll over and at 6 a.m. the alarm's going off and it's like, if you don't get up and do this thing, you're either going to lose money or this thing is going to fail. You know, and I like to be like that.
That's how it is for me. And then you appreciate those days so much more where like you don't have anything to do.
Yeah.
Once every 6 months for us. Like you're like you go to set your alarm and you're like, I don't really have to wake up tomorrow at least.
It's so weird. It gives me anxiety. I end up checking my schedule 17 times. I look through my emails. I'm like, there has to be something
going on tomorrow. Yeah. But you know, whether it's cramming yourself or overloading yourself or just making sure that, like I always tell people, no matter what you're doing, whether it's saving money or going to school or learning something new or getting better at your job, as long as you're doing something every day to work towards where you're going to be, mathematically, that's how you're going to get better.
I think that a lot of people are like so focused on finding what makes money. And some cool that I really, really liked that the handsome home buyer said in your last podcast was that he's like, I have these people saying I want to get into real estate or I want to get into this because, you know, I want to make money. And he's like, well, what do you do? And they're like, I'm a hairdresser, I'm a this. And it's like, you could make money doing what you do.
Yeah.
if you love whatever you do and if you're obsessed with what you do, you're going to do it more, you're going to be better at it, and then the money will come. There's somebody rich at everything in the world, no matter what you could think of. You know what I mean? Somebody's rich at doing that. You've been obsessed with this real estate shit for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the money.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm sure.
No, I know.
I'm sure
No,
the
you're
money
right.
helps, but you're obsessed with something bigger. I remember for a couple of weeks, I worked in finance, and
Stop.
yeah, I don't know if you remember.
You were
that.
like, nah,
Nah.
this isn't for me.
But I remember the guy that I was working for. You know, the main guy, the guy who owned the firm, had taken home like $44 million or something the first year that he opened up the firm, and his analysis. You know, I was talking to one day. I'm like, why does this guy's always here? He doesn't sleep. He's worn the same suit for 4 days in a row. He looks like a bag of dicks. He's falling apart.
Yeah.
Like he made $44 million last year. You're
die.
done.
Yeah.
You're done. You could
quit. You win. The game's over.
like you won, bro. And he's like, nobody ever got that rich for the money. And that really stuck with me. Like it's true. The people that are that big and do that well and go that far are people that are just that obsessed with what they do. It has the numbers are just on a scoreboard
The
kind
back
of thing.
end, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, and that makes total sense. I mean, so like where I am, you know, my boss definitely does it on purpose. But every month we see the final numbers. We see who did what, who did more volume this month than this person, who got more people into houses, who did more refinances, who does conventional business, this and that. And it like, you know, and you take it with a grain of salt. And like, there's a part of you that's like, I just want my numbers to be better.
Yeah,
Like,
you just always want to be doing better.
you know,
That's how it should be. Yeah.
Yeah, the money obviously, you know, obviously you work for a living, and when you're in sales, you know, I've always looked at this where like if I could sell one house a month and make this, but I could sell 100 houses a month and make this, my goal is to just
Make
cram
150
as much as I can. Right.
Yeah.
So literally, you know, someone said like, you know, what do you think is more lucrative, you know, real estate or mortgages? You'll never in a million years convince me that real estate is more lucrative than mortgages, because you can set up a team, a platform, a whole bunch of people to make sure there's processors and people underneath you, and you could close hundreds or thousands of transactions a month in the mortgage industry.
Yeah.
If you're a real estate broker, I mean, I guess I'd have to take that back, because if you're a broker and you have people working underneath you, but as a single person,
It's a lot more footwork.
right? You
a lot
can
more
only
on the street, like
Right.
actually showing up to places.
you can
yeah.
only close a certain amount of transactions yourself personally as a realtor. So there's loan officers that do 100 million in volume a year by themselves as a single person.
Yeah, it's
We're
crazy.
talking about 35, 40. Imagine trying to close 34 transactions in real estate a month. You'd have to be-
and you'd have to be at every single one of those closings.
A
You'd have
day,
to be at
every day.
There's
So-
so much driving around and yeah.
So I tried both, and to me it was, you know, we've always both been numbers people, but the numbers to me was always like,
I think you trying both is what makes you so good at what you do now, because you've been on the other side of things in terms of trying to sell the houses and you know, being in real estate. I think that makes you way better at being a broker.
yeah, no, it does. It helps to know what goes on the other side, because you can empathize with the realtors who are driving to 19 different houses just to tell someone, you know, just for them to say, I think I'm going to rent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's, you know, and for me, if someone says, oh, I think I'm going to rent, I'm like, okay, no problem, delete. That's it, you know?
Yeah.
So I got tired of getting in my car. I was like,
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to kick up at the office here and get a nice desk. But
I think like with what I'm doing now with this house and all the renovations that I'm doing, it would be so much easier to not be doing as much as I'm doing by myself and not kind of, you know, self-contracting the way that I'm doing now. And I could afford it, but I would rather be as hands-on as I can with this process, so that when I go forward and I want to buy houses that I want to flip or I want to make rentals,
you can contract yourself.
I could contract myself, or I could know when a contractor is bullshitting me.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Somebody's always trying to get over it. And I would like to know what's what. And the only way I'm going to do that is by taking the time now. Again, I'm not sleeping a lot. I'm not, you know, every single morning I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm meeting
I was
the guys
really surprised that
downstairs,
you were going to
and-
be able to come out here when I asked you on Wednesday. I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
this is no way. And you're like, yeah, Wednesday night. I'm like, you definitely canceled something.
yeah.
But no, I mean, that you've always been hands-on. You've always been able to fix anything. That's something that definitely drives you. You don't want to just pay somebody to do something. You want to know why
No,
they're doing it, how it's working.
Yeah. And at some point, I'm not going to be able to do that. You know, if I've got 3 houses going on or something like that, where I would like to be, I'm not going to be able to be hands-on, but I need to know what they're doing. And the only way I'm going to do that is by sacrificing right now and waking up early and going to sleep late. And, when they're pouring concrete, I'm there mixing concrete. When we're pulling wires or whatever, like every single thing I want to be a part of.
I guess if we're going to leave everybody off with something, it'd be better off coming from you. So what would you say, or what's your outlook on just everything in general, and what you would tell somebody if they looked at you and said, like, I could never do what he did?
I hear it all the time. And I think, people are always quick to be like, oh, you're so lucky that you have this
or
thing.
Or you're too smart. Or you.
Yeah, and it's like, you weren't, I'm lucky, like you weren't there when I was sleeping for 3 hours a night, every single day. I think what I said before is probably the biggest thing. You got to love what you do. If you love what you do, you're not going to want to sleep. You're going to want to wake up and do this thing. But a lot of people are so focused on, I need to have this job because I can make money. Or I have friends that are plumbers or electricians or something. They're like, I wish I could do what you do. Like, you're a plumber. You could make $20,000 in a day. You got enough jobs going on. If you were a licensed plumber, if you're this. I think if you love what you do, that's the biggest thing. And you just got to chase whatever it is that you love. You start looking at things financially, you're never going to be there because you're going to hate what you do and you're not going to do it enough. You're not going to be good at it.
So, I mean, going back and trying to sum this whole thing up from beginning to end and the reason why I wanted you here out of anybody else that I guess I could have called was like, I've always felt like I was, I don't want to say one step behind you, but I always felt like I was chasing.
I've always felt like that about you.
Yeah, of course. Right, because you don't do things for the money.
Yeah.
And I don't draw pictures. So I always remember thinking, if I can make $1,500 a day drawing, I'd draw 9 days a week and I would save $10,000 a week and I'd retire, right? Yeah. And you were always like, I just want to buy a house. I just want to buy a house. I just want to buy a house. Yeah. So we were probably always looking at each other, but like, to me, I would always think like, I can't get up and work on a car. I can't get up and, pick up a book and be like, I need to learn how this works by tomorrow and then just learn it and do it myself.
You could. You just never been that interested in it. It's something that I've been taking apart my VCR since I was 7 years old.
Well, that's when they stopped being made.
Roughly. That's when my mom let me take it.
Yeah, take this thing. What is this? I don't even know. But it's always impressed me that, like, from like 2 years ago when you called me and you were like, I'm going to have to buy a house. What am I going to do? And I'm like, listen, you can't do anything. You have 3 cars. You rent, you have no money saved up. This is what you'd have to do. Here's a bullet point, and and get back to me when most people would get back to me. Never. Yeah. And then you called me like a year ago or 7 months ago, and you're like, all right, I got $50,000. I'm ready to file my taxes. All of my cars are in my business. Nothing else is anymore. And I'm like, this
there's a lot of steps to it.
He did exactly what he was told to do.
You walked me through. It's really. I think nobody, a lot. You're right. A lot of people don't do that.
Listening is a lot harder than a lot of.
You tell people exactly what to do. Do X, Y, and Z, and they're like, but I want to go to Taco Tuesday. I want to hang out with my friends. I want to drink a beer every day after work. You're not going to be able to do all those things. So yeah, I followed exactly what you said, exactly what you told me to do. It took me a year or so to get there, but I did all of those steps over that year, and it helped me.
And you also did a lot more during that year.
Yeah,
which is huge. You had 3 jobs. You opened the tattoo parlor. You saved up money for a house, and you probably bought 3 more cars that I don't even know about.
I didn't buy 3 more cars. I sold the car.
But no, dude. I mean, congratulations. I'm interested in just staying in touch and seeing where both of us are 2-3 years from now, because I can only imagine.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm excited.
All right, it's been real.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Of course.